I see you found our little hiding spot in the universe. Don't get too comfortable. This is a place where you will find those with an experience that's out of this world, or possibly deep within your life. I welcome you to the Oracles with James Tyson. Lean forward and listen. We will pull you into a supernatural journey with guests from around the world, each one experiencing some of the most extraordinary phenomena this wee planet has to offer. I wish to invite you to support the program through the Oracles with JamesTyson.com Patreon link. For as little as $3 per month, you qualify for a free monthly psychic reading, a past life regression, and exclusive access to our filmed interviews. Don't lower your guard. That's just the beginning as we give back. When I have reached 2,222 members, we will be giving away monthly trips to supernatural hotspots and conferences across North America. Don't run. With a limit of 4,500 Patreon supporters, you will want to get your passports ready, as every third month, we will include paranormal conferences and tours in Europe and Australia. Visit theoracleswithjamestyson.com and click on the Patreon link. Where you're listening, that's the Patreon button at theoracleswithjamestyson.com. Now, here are the Oracles with James Tyson.
Shut up and sit down.
Thank you, Liam, and thank you, everyone, for tuning into this episode of The Oracles with James Tyson, who happens to be me. Today, on our episode of ghostly, paranormal type things, is my friend Sharon Day, who was raised in Virginia. Her father, Stanley Day, was the designer for the program for alcoholic recovery for the government, and her mother was a historian and art teacher. Sharon runs a popular paranormal blog, Ghost Hunting Theories, and is the author of many books, including the award-winning series Growing Up with Ghosts and Vacationing with Ghosts. Sharon is a psychic who does radio appearances to discuss subjects of the unexplained. Sharon, welcome.
Oh, thank you.
I haven't spoken to you since, actually, I've spoken to you in June. You were in the middle of a move there because I was down in your neighborhood trying to slap a camera in front of you and do one of our video recordings of the interview. But this is good. And I'm going to come down there again, too, and track you down, woman. How is everything going? Your blog is marvelous. I keep poking in there.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's been crazy. I think this year, 2019, is going to be really impressive for ghost hunting theories. It already has such a huge body of information, but I'm working intimately with a lot of different research groups and researchers that are out in the field, and those who are doing expeditions looking for very extraordinary finds and finding some amazing things. So I'm kind of taking it to a new level, a little more of the X-Files stuff that people really want to know more about, what I want to know more about. I'm focusing more on, what is it I've always wanted to pursue. And luckily it kind of aligns with most people's curiosity level. So
perfect.
Yeah.
That's the only reason we are in this, is that we keep finding questions before we find, there's more questions out there than answers. So I got to keep going. With you, at least you write them down too. So it's pretty good.
I like to think of the blog as just a giant archive. I want to share everything I can find, and I'm not exclusive about my knowledge. I want others to go take that knowledge and try it out, or take it and make something else out of it. Just, I'm not proprietary about any of it.
When you were little, like you grew up in Virginia, I know the basic history of the home that you and the family grew up in. Could you bring us up to date, or bring my listener up to date on what type of home it was and what the heck was going on when you were a little kid?
Oh, well, the estate was called Aspen Grove in Fairfax, Virginia, and it was built in the mid 1700s basically as sort of a fort to protect against native intrusion. So the windows were sort of tilted up above in the upper floor so that arrows couldn't get in and stuff like that. So it was originally called the Springfield. It was built atop of a spring, which is really interesting when you start to look at the history of the house. The spring ran under the house. The basic walls of the basement and the foundation of the home had a lot of quartz in it. It was just like a perfect mix to make a really good haunted vessel. And when the Civil War came along, the North came and took it over, and it had been occupied by a Quaker family that owned it, and they had built a hidden room in the center of the house where they would hide away some of the slaves that were trying to run away. And so the North took it over, used it as a field hospital, and they built a fort on the property too. And that fort saw a lot of shooting, killing activity, cannonballs all over the property. It was a very active area. Then later on in the war, the South took it over and used it for a field hospital too. So both sides had died there. And that, along with the very alchemy of the way the building was built and the geology and the waterway, it seemed to come together to make something that was quite extraordinary. It was a very haunted home, but also a very haunted property. There were as many spirits on the grounds as there were in the home. And I got a lot of notoriety. It was a very unusual way to grow up because it was like, the big old scary mansion on the hill, and all the other kids lived in tract housing. And they would just drive by and look up the hill at that old spooky Addams family house. And they'd read the newspapers, and the newspapers were always covering the ghosts and the history. And so I didn't have I knew I was never going to have a normal childhood, but it was a really good one because I kind of grew up with a metal detector in my hand, digging up relics. And I grew up there since I was a baby. And a haunting to me is the most natural part of the world and the way it works. I don't question the sun coming up, and I don't question where wind comes from. And I never questioned that ghosts should be present.
Wow. Is this a historic site now? Is the home still there?
It is. The home was actually protected because in the 1980s, a contractor had bought it, and he wanted to tear it down and build condos. The Washington, D.C. kind of had encroached into Fairfax, and Fairfax did a miserable job of protecting its history. They let people just tear everything down. Well, there was quite a incensed group that wasn't going to let that mansion be torn down. So they compromised. The mansion and the boxwood maze had to remain, but all the historic outbuildings, the creek, the orchards, everything else could be plowed under. And so condos were built around the mansion. And interestingly, where the condos are nowadays, they have the same haunting issues in the same places with the same spirits. So whether they tore it down and built up condos, it made no difference. The spirits were still in those spots.
Yeah, they like the area. They're going to stay there.
It is. It's so much like a memory that's just held into the environment.
Do you think is that residual, or what's called residual haunting, or is that so it's basically a non-responsive energy?
Yeah, absolutely. The ones that occurred around the grounds, I would say all of those were residual. They were a lot of apparitions, but the same apparitions walking the same paths, and they never looked at you. They never noticed you. They never changed their course. They always just appeared the same way and were oblivious. So I don't see those as actively intelligent or related to a spirit necessarily. There's some other forms, I think, of holding everything that's ever happened in the world. It's sort of like the Akashic records, the concept that everything that is, will be, and was are all continuously happening at the same time. There is no actual timeline. It's just all held there in the universe forever. And that's a lot of, I'd say about 90% of the hauntings in that property were residual, and about 10% were definitely intelligent.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up as a little girl in a house with Confederate or Union soldiers, like walking past you in the hallways?
Well, it was kind of interesting. My parents had a very good attitude. See, now when we moved in, my much older siblings, they knew what ghosts were, and they knew that the last house didn't have ghosts, and this one did. So they were not real comfortable with it. I was a baby, so it was the only world that I had ever known. My parents sat the kids down one day and told all of us, these soldiers died away from their families, and here there's 5 children in this house. And so if you run into them in the hallways, or you hear them speaking or walking up and down the stairs at night, just know that there's nobody better to protect you than a soldier. And that whole attitude helped my siblings a lot. I didn't necessarily need that speech because to me, I always knew their intentions and their and what they had gone through. Because I think growing up there since I was a baby, I was very attached to the items I dug up in the property, all the artifacts, and that's where I developed a skill for psychometry, being able to read others who had touched that object, and it extended into being able to understand the way in which different people had died in the house, and their attitude and their emotional state, and their family and their relationships, and so I felt very attached to them as if they were maybe long deceased relatives.
Oh, that's fascinating. No, I like the idea of psychometry. A friend of mine over in Wales, she does that, and
Mhm,
I guess a lot of people do it from all over the place. But
mhm.
it's fascinating that you can actually you'd be out with your metal detector, let's say, and dig up a belt buckle, hold it in your hand, and know that it was from Bob, who was 200 years ago running, and it fell out of his pocket.
Well, yeah, and here's one of the. It's interesting you mentioned that because I had dug up a belt buckle when I was a child, and I remember every time I dug something up, I would rush to my mom, who was a historian and who was the keeper of the history of the house, and I would say, "Oh, Mom, I found this." And one time I brought her a belt buckle, and I said, here's the guy's name, and he was a reporter, and he's a Yankee from up north, and he's away from his wife and two children, and he died here, and my mom would just look at me like, wow, that's so interesting, dear. What a storyteller you are. And I would hand it to her and I'd look at her face and I'd think, she's not lighting up. She's not excited. And it didn't dawn on me until I was probably in my 20s that people touch things and all they get is like texture and weight and temperature. They don't get the information. And
Yeah.
so later on, now that we have computers out there and lots of history being recorded on computers, I decided to look up this guy's name. And yeah, he was actually a reporter from New York who had come down there to report on the war. And he had a wife and two children and he died there. So,
Fascinating.
yeah.
Oh, it's poor mom. She could have actually put all that information on the belt buckle and hung it up. See, we have a thing out on the east coast of Canada right now, Oak Island, and
Oh, yes, I love that.
yeah, you should like that's the place you should go because they're finding stuff that's back in the 1600s that aren't supposed to be there.
Well, it my
And
my hands tingle when I see them digging up things 'cause I'm thinking, "Just let me touch it, just let me touch
just
it. I'll
yeah,
tell you
no kidding. And then they
I'll take
pass
you
it.
right to the next thing."
Yeah, they'll start passing it around to 20 different people and move it out of state. And then too many people have touched this. If I had let's see, we'll go with the Oak Island thing. They found this lead cross that was from the
Oh, yeah.
1500s. If you had touched that first, second, or third, would you get something? Or if you ended up touching it like 30th, 40th, 50th, is that too much
Mm.
pollution of it? The energy?
It's a very good question, actually. And part of, I've always been, I think the reason why I'm a researcher now is I'm very analytical. Even as a child, I would stand back and go, okay, why is this object easier to read than this object? And I would try to look at what it was made of or how long had been away from human contact. The things I used to dig up in the property, I readily got information right away from the person who last had it, which was 100 years or so ago. Once the item was cleaned up, maybe all the rust was removed or it was all polished and shiny, I could still get information, a little bit more than I could originally. So maybe the rust or corrosion had a little bit of effect on me being able to get a good read. But when it comes to objects, usually I found if somebody has been for example, I had a friend who gave me a watch to read, and I started reading it, and I got all this great information, but none of it had to do with her. And then she said, well, when I think about it, my husband was wearing this watch last week, and he wore it all week. So it took him a week to put his own information on it. But other people have given me things that they just received from another person, and it already has their information within a day or two of wearing it. So as long as these people aren't pocketing this item, like that cross wasn't something somebody put in their pocket and, rode around town and went home and put it on their dresser. And, if it wasn't with them a lot, I should be able to get the original source.
No, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
You ever bought a used car and had an issue? Get into the
Well,
car and go,
okay.
oh, this is creepy.
There's something I have learned because imagine being a psychometrist and you go into like a store and you take an item off the shelf. I'll get a can of beans or something and I hold it and I go, no, don't want this one. Set it aside, get another one. I mean, I could go through 8 cans to find one that feels good. So I've learned to just shut that off, and I have to literally force myself to focus if I want to use it.
I'm not ever going with you to an antique store. That would just.
Oh, my friends drag me to antique stores all the time. Should I bring this home? Is it okay to bring it home? Yeah, I'm perfect for that. I'm perfect for that job.
Okay, good. It's not you're not going to walk in and touch something and say, "Oh, that was used to pierce somebody's heart."
I go in and I swear there's items that scream at me, and I'll be like, okay, wait, I'll be back in a second, and I'll run across the store and I'll go down the bottom of shelf, and my friend will be like, what are you doing? And I'm going, there's this glass vase here, and it needs me. And she's like, what? And sure enough, I pull out a glass vase out of this bottom shelf, and I'm like, okay, I just need to read it. Okay, I just acknowledged it. I'll put it away now.
With other psychometrists, I've noticed I've been told that they get the most information from a metal, whether it's ferrous metal or just iron. But can you get it, like you just said, a glass vase? You get it from pretty well anything that you touch?
Well, the reason the glass vase got me was it had a metal base too, and that is true. Metal is so easy to read. It is the easiest. If somebody hands me a piece of jewelry, I'm in heaven, because A, it's metal, and B, they've been wearing it. So it really it's such an easy read. And there's some things that are very hard to read. I tell people all the time, I like rocks, I like stones, I like gems. They don't carry memories. They only carry energy. So if you want to know, is this rock a good one energy-wise to keep me healthy or to protect me or whatever, I'll tell you. But it doesn't matter who held it or how long they held it. There's none of their memories in it. The energy from stones seems to obliterate all that memory stuff. Metal's easy. Some of the hardest things to read are more porous things like styrofoam, things that are processed a lot like plastic.
I'm glad you're not like digging up ancient styrofoam. So that's
yeah. I have had a friend that brought me a fast food container that her boyfriend ate out of, and she was like, did he cheat on me? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to get anything out of this.
But you know what your answer is? Yeah, he did. I found if you ask the question, yes. Your gut just told you he was cheating on you, and you're just looking for a little confirmation from people. But yeah, go with your gut. He's cheating on you.
Yeah, it's a styrofoam container from a Chinese restaurant across town. Yeah, he might be cheating on you.
Yeah. You then, as like late teens into your 20s, when you kind of going back in hindsight and all the things that you've run into and discovered, you're now a young woman, you're going to go start a family. Do you go off on a basic, like your mom career, job, family, or do you kind of always have that foot in the paranormal, supernatural pond behind you?
Yeah, I've never walked away from it, but I have put it underground. When I was married to somebody who was very much of this world. There is no God, there is no unexplained, there is no psychics, there is no, and he didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want me to talk about it because he thought that would make me insane. So in front of him and others, all of that was kept secret. I didn't use it in front of them. I didn't publicize it. Near the end of the marriage, when I knew there was no way I could continue to put a lid on my soul, basically, I started to rebel, and I started ghost hunting theories, and I began to use my psychic skills and investigate out in public and talk about it and get interviewed for it. And he couldn't get away from it. It was out there, and the big question was, can you tolerate this about me? And I don't know if he thought I was going through middle-age problems because I wasn't obeying anymore, but I really rebelled against that kind of tyranny, and so the marriage dissolved, and that was that's when my life began. When I started using the skills that God gave me. God gave me these skills for a reason, and I wasn't using them, and that's horrible. You don't have your parents give you some genetic skill, like artistry or music, and not use it. So
yeah, and that's and people with your, I'll call it your vibration, this thing you have, and I have a bit of it, not as much as you, but we certainly attract narcissists and very low vibration people into our lives. And that's the conflict. Like we're always going to, well, I shouldn't say we, most of the people who have that higher vibration are women, about 65 to 68%. So when you are in a relationship, being that it's a lower percentage of men, and you're always going to have to work, he'll be
Mhm.
tapped in, sucking that energy out, and you're still going to have to work a little hard on that. It's getting those guys who are really low, that love at
Oh, yeah.
first sight. Oh, I want to fix it. Yeah, the love at first sight, bad. It's that your subconscious saying, "Oh, I can fix him."
Well, and I think
Yeah,
it's normal too to pick somebody rather opposite. I chose him at
yeah.
16 years of age, and the reason I chose him was he was very responsible and adult for a 16-year-old. So, and what that actually means as you go down the line and you get older and wiser is somebody that's mature for their age is really controlling and rigid. And
Hmm.
so that wasn't something I thought of at that age. So when I see young people get together, I'm like, okay, wait, you may whatever you think is their character strength is actually their character flaw. So look at that.
My mother wouldn't. If my mother had her way, I would never have dated one person. I would have dated many people. She
Mhm.
was
Yeah.
totally against me as a teenager dating person A without dating person B, C, and D. Well, imagine that in high school. You take a girl to a movie on a Thursday night and then another one on a Friday night. Next
Mhm.
Monday, when you end up in school, they're all going to talk. And you're not going to be dating anybody after that. So it's
Men
like,
don't realize that we women talk. Now, since I've been single, I get men that'll try to flirt with me on Facebook and stuff. And what they don't realize is they go and they pick my girlfriends. They go down my friends list and they friend all my friends, thinking, "Oh, she's hot, and here's her hot friends." Well, hot friends talk, and we compare notes.
oh, yeah.
So don't ever go fishing in the same pond, guys.
Yeah. All right, guys, and especially with a psychic, because there's two things that are going to happen right there. She's going to know where you got the flowers. And
True.
these are for my friend, but she stood me up, so I'm going to phone Sharon. I got them at the cemetery. Sharon, you said as your marriage was kind of getting to the stress point, dissolving, that's when you started writing. What was your first book?
I think the first book was probably Kicking Up Dust,
Mm.
Getting Lost to Find Ourselves. And I did that with my best friend, Julie Ferguson. And it was very representative of what I had just gone through because the two of us became friends right before my marriage dissolved. And we both were in the worst parts of our life we had ever been in. And we decided, let's go on a road trip. And when we did, we discovered that she's a really good photographer and I'm really good at writing. And we started to think, hey, let's maybe do a book together or something. And every time we would go out and do a road trip or go on a ghost hunt or whatever we were doing, every time we came back home, our lives changed like 180 degrees. So we started to realize that this thing we were doing was actually bringing life into our lives where we were gaining confidence coming home and we knew who we were and what we wanted. And both of us have just excelled amazingly in the past 8 years. It's stunning to see, but that's because we're using what God gave us, basically.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
And when you say God give you, it's quite interesting. When I talk to a lot of, I travel around and I speak at conventions like ghost conventions, and we get picketed. A church came out last year to the Oregon Ghost Conference, and they were picketing us because there were psychics there. I have yet to
Yeah.
meet a psychic that doesn't believe in God.
Well, here's the thing, there's a difference between having spirituality and a relationship with God and going to church and paying your dues. One is a business and one is personal. And I don't believe in making God a business at all. I'm not an organized religion person, but I do believe that your private relationship with God should be expressed in the way that with what God gave you. If God gave you the ability to be very poetic, that's your relationship with God. And however you see God, God could be fate, God could be genetics, DNA, but whatever it is, for some reason we're programmed. And if you do what you're programmed to do, your life is very fulfilling.
Yeah, my dad had the same kind of philosophy. My father would, during the Second World War, as from about 18 to 22 years old in England, when he wanted to pray or when he wanted to think about one of his buddies he lost, it didn't matter to him whether it was a Anglican church, a Catholic church, a synagogue, whatever, as long as it was quiet.
Yeah.
And he went in and he didn't want anybody to try to talk to him about religion or anything. He just wanted to be quiet with his own thoughts.
Hmm.
And literally his own thoughts were what we would now call meditation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tweaking that a little bit to whatever religion you're based in, it's prayer. You're thinking to somebody in spirit that you hope is in a better place. Well, my dad was bombing the Germans who were in France. I
Mhm.
used to always drive him crazy when I said that. You didn't fight the Germans, you bombed France. But
Uh,
he was a kid, he was a teenager, and
yeah.
when you lose a buddy who was in a plane beside you, and all of a sudden, poof, it's gone. It's so quick, and as teenagers, we're all indestructible.
Mhm.
And you can imagine people back in the late 30s, early 40s. Those guys were all grown up teenagers. Like, heck, I even look at it, their high school pictures, and I think, no, those guys are all in their 40s. It's like, when did you grow up like that?
It's
My
true.
gosh. But that's it. It's
Yeah.
the a church is where you are,
Oh, absolutely.
basically. We carry it with us. So yeah. We're going to go off onto theology here, which is
Mhm.
not my forte.
Mhm.
So we're going to get back into the supernatural stuff.
Mhm.
I'm talking to Sharon Day. She's an author out of Arizona and does way more things than I could ever do. She is actually very, very cool young woman. She has a wonderful blog, Ghost Hunting Theories. Look that up. It's updated almost daily. There's a couple of
Yeah.
things popping up there a day. She's the author of Growing Up with Ghosts, Vacationing with Ghosts, and it's kind of what we were touching on in the first bit here. But yeah, Sharon, if you get a chance to see her at a conference or speaking, actually pay attention to the blog. You'll find out where she might be on a radio show or doing a TV appearance too. That's a
Yeah.
great little way you can get out there, Sharon, is your blog, Ghost Hunting Theories. So you've got your writing, you've got people wanting you to go out and do ghost hunting and things like
Mhm.
that, and you're in a great state for that. I was down in Tombstone, Arizona, and Bisbee. My friend runs the old morgue in Tombstone, and I was down there talking to her as things are flying off the walls. The and then up into Sedona. Do you get up to Sedona very often?
I like to go at least once a year, and it's a pilgrimage to me because Sedona is it's not just Red Rock and a lot of new age woo-woo shops and UFO restaurants and such. It's much more than that. It's very elemental. You go there, and usually the first 12 hours or so, you get a headache and you feel kind of hungover. And then once you wake up the next morning, you sort of feel like a completely new person, like a blank slate.
Yeah.
Everything's been rebooted. And so anything is possible at this point because you're not carrying any past bad mojo or anything. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. I've been there a few times. I shouldn't say a few, a couple of times. I did about a 3 hour meditation on the Bell Vortex,
Oh,
that
very
woo
good.
rock. Then I got a tattoo, and inside the tattoo, they put the iron oxide from the Bell Vortex in my tattoo,
Oh, that is very cool.
and it's a Kokopelli tattoo.
Oh, Cocapelli, good choice.
Yeah, so I've got Bell Vortex iron oxide in there after my meditation,
Good
and my
choice.
arm didn't catch fire, blow up, I can still go through metal detectors. I'm fine. But I did go up there and watch UFOs
Very good. Yes,
with
extremely UFO ridden there. Yeah.
with Melinda Leslie,
Mhm.
bless her, who takes the tours out every night and with night vision goggles and points out a portal that was pointed out to her by some people from NASA. And I was like,
Yeah.
what? But we
Yeah.
were watching them going like in groups and then powering up and like flashing at each other, like two people flashing their high beams as one's coming and one's
Yep.
going. And I thought, okay, maybe if I see one, yeah, okay, fine. But they were one after another in groups of two and three and going to and from the portal that she pointed out before they even were coming and going from it. Oh, it was amazing. I definitely have to go
Mhm.
back there. Next time you go, call me. I'll meet you.
Okay, great. Yeah, actually, right now I've moved recently and I'm at the base of South Mountain, and South Mountain is where the Phoenix Lights were. So,
Oh,
yeah,
isn't that great? I was
it
talking
is.
to Dr. Lynn Kitai, who wrote the books
Yep.
about the Phoenix Lights, and yeah,
Uh-huh.
that was amazing. I really, really would have loved to have been there as that parade went from
Well,
north to south.
it's ironic because I lived here back when that happened, and I went out the night before to go look at, I think Hale Bopp was up in the sky, and I went looking it toward the mountain to see it. And that the night that it actually happened, I didn't go outside, but about several months later, November 1st, I was going to a Halloween party with someone, and we were riding in the car along South Mountain, and all of a sudden, this grouping of lights came toward us, very low, absolutely silent. It was just like what you saw over that mountain, and we pulled the car over to watch it. All I wished was that I had a camera with me, but I didn't have anything to document it other than us just going, what did we just see?
It even if you did, a lot of times you might, because you've seen things in the past, you may have been a little more with it. But people with cell phones now in their pockets, when they see something, whether it's Bigfoot juggling beach balls standing in the middle of the road, on it, they're just fascinated, and then it leaves, and they look at each other and think, "Wow, oh crap, we should have used their phones."
Well, I've tried to do that because I had about a 45-minute witnessing of these red orange orbs, and they were dancing and chasing each other, coming and going. And my friend and I were out in the desert watching this, and we were astonished. It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. But I tried to videotape it, and all I got was like some blurry white dots that were moving around because my hand was shaking. And
Hmm.
so I couldn't capture what I was seeing with my eyes, but we were both just stunned and in awe.
It's a gift, isn't it? When
Mm.
you see something like that, it's like, "Oh, thank you very
I
much for
I know some people
dancing."
get scared. Some people get scared when they see things and they want to run away from them. And all I can think of is, I'm so glad I get to witness and archive this. Thank you.
Oh, it's like when I
Yeah.
do paranormal investigations and I get touched or pushed or growled at, or somebody starts yelling at me, I think, "Oh, this is really cool." And then they don't bug me anymore because I'm not scared. But then I watch television shows where, "Go ahead, please touch my hand," and then it does
Mhm,
touch its hand,
mhm.
and he runs screaming down the hallway. I go, "Well, don't ask to be touched, you bozo. It's not that scary. You ask them to talk to you, they talk to you. And how come after 10 years you haven't got a photograph of a ghost?"
Yeah,
I
yeah.
could do that in an
It's
hour.
I
But yeah,
always
that
I advise people a lot of times just go ghost hunting. I like to call it going ghost hunting naked because just don't take any tools. Don't take anything to document. Don't take anything to measure. Because the minute you're looking at meters and you're looking down at your hand and you're trying to get something with a camera, they can't really capture what the human eye does.
yeah.
All of this is useless because the best thing for to detect a spirit is another spirit, and you are a human having, or you're a spirit having a human experience. So you certainly recognize the signs.
Oh, the goosebumps and the temperature changes and
Mhm.
the
We
and
have
even
all the right.
the
Yeah,
ears ringing. Yeah.
we have the barometers, and don't miss it because so many people get into the technical wanting to prove ghosts or prove a haunting, and all they end up doing is missing what just went by, what just happened.
Yeah. I host documentaries now, Sharon, and one of the
Mhm.
documentaries was we filmed at a local Legion. Like, it's where the old, not old veterans anymore, but it's a veterans place. You go have a beer, and what I brought was a piece of string and an audio recorder. And they
I like
said, "What are you doing with the string? Don't you have all this gear?" And I said, "Well, yeah, but that's if you don't believe in ghosts."
exactly.
I brought this because I believe in ghosts. They're there. In fact, the lady who runs the place sees them.
Mhm.
And I hung a string at the bar, and I had my audio recorder going. And I said, "If there's anybody here behind the bar, could you just make the string go?" And nothing. And we played the tape back later, and all you hear is a guy saying, "Don't touch the string." So there was one spirit telling all the other spirits, "Leave the string alone. It's yeah, don't humor these people." So yeah, it happens. It's like, I know they're there. I don't have to check temperatures and stuff. It's not a science. It's
Exactly.
it's it's just, it is what it is.
I wish we had equipment that could adequately capture this, and we're missing an element about the physics of how it works. So I spend my time, instead of trying to prove ghosts or prove a haunting, I'm spending my time trying to find out what are the commonalities. What is the repeatability? Can we predict places or timings? And what does that tell us about the science behind this? Because if it's launched into our world, it obviously follows laws of physics. So even though we think of it as something in a spiritual nature, it expresses itself in this physical realm. That's why we can detect it.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
I find that a lot. One of the things that I've been looking at, and one of the things I'm finding in common is, if you are, let's take Tombstone, for example, there's no river, or it's not on a coast anywhere. It's in
Hmm.
the middle of a desert, and it's on top of silver mines, and the ground is incredibly jam packed with quartz.
Yeah.
And you see them all over the place, ghosts.
Hmm.
I had one, I stayed in one of the old places that, Wyatt Earp or whatever, one of those guys stayed in when he was there. And I had a little kid running around there, kicking the bed and actually he grabbed my hand and then went under the bed going thump, thump, thump. And I built the bubble around myself. You know how you kind of manifest that bubble. Everybody leave me alone. I want some sleep. I'm realizing that kids don't pay attention to that.
Nope.
The adult ghosts, they're going, okay, we're not going in there. But the kids, it's like, it's the second time this happened. I had a girl come in and ask me if I was her father once, and it's like, okay, no, leave. I built a bubble. But
here I am in Arizona, and of course I've been to Tombstone many times, and I had my doubts when I did an initial study of looking at the potential for a haunting at Birdcage Theater. I kept looking at it going, but that's a wood structure. How could that really be able to retain anything? But yes, it does. And you're like you said, it's the ground itself.
Yeah. And what I find is things that with high quartz content, a lot of sun, good for actually seeing something.
Here's another thing. We have a ghost town that we have sort of somewhat exclusivity to study. And one thing we keep finding there are these little balls of light, green light, that just float around in the room and stuff. And I, of course, being kind of scientific of mind, said, hey, why do you suppose this is? Well, when I started looking into what they were using in these mines to process, it was putting particulates in the air along with this. It was in a valley between these mountains that has a constant high wind, and the static and the very 2% humidity made it very staticky. So it had the possibility of igniting at times some of these particulates that are in the air from the mining, and some of those would make green light.
Is that the one where people used to see car lights in the distance? Is
no.
that the valley? Okay, it's a different place in Arizona.
Yeah.
It's a crazy place you have there.
It's the geology, I tell you.
Exactly. Well, no, it is. It is the geology. And out here on the west coast of British Columbia and all down the Olympic Peninsula into Oregon, on the coast, because I was particularly off of where I am at the southern tip of Vancouver Island, the second largest island in the Pacific. Across from it is the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State. The tide comes in there and out of there twice a day, and that creates so much energy. So they used to say Victoria, British Columbia was one of the most haunted places around. Well, yeah, unless you compare it to like Key West, Florida, has a similar tidal energy. It's not that they're any more haunted than anywhere else. It's just that you can see them.
And here's why. This is, one of the things that when I'm studying and I'm trying to find these things that are common, one of the things I find are geomagnetic storms, which are basically the offshoot of a solar flare. That's how it affects us. And it actually affects our minds, and it changes the state of our mind. It gives us very vivid dreams at night. But it also seems to make us better at perceiving hauntings. So I found that when I go on a ghost investigation, it's a very active night, about 100% of the time, there's a geomagnetic storm going on. And what's significant is all of us psychics, we're pretty much able to tap that stuff anytime we want. But the regular people on the team who are not psychic suddenly had a very active night. And it wasn't that there were more ghosts that night, it was that they were able to perceive them. Yes. So there's certain conditions in which we just are better at perceiving what's always there. And the reason why running water is significant is it puts off negative ions. And negative ions have an effect on humans that make us feel euphoric and invincible. And that's some of the reasons why they find people around places like Niagara Falls can get incredibly careless because they feel invincible from all those negative ions. Well, what does that do to our perception of ghosts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're going to feel kind of invincible at Niagara Falls, please don't. It's like being invincible at the edge of the Grand Canyon.
It's only the negative ions. Don't listen to it.
Yeah, don't listen to it. You can't fly, and no, that barrel won't save you. We're talking to Sharon Day. Please, if you get a chance, and go down to Arizona. Actually, I'm not going to send people to your house again. You moved, so I can't. Please look up her blog. It's fabulous. It keeps it updated, and you'll learn a lot. It's Ghost Hunting Theories. Just Google Ghost Hunting Theories, and you'll see Sharon. Now, I'm not going to get into Sharon also writing a book on how to take selfies, but She can do that. So all her pictures are great. Sharon, you were talking about the water and wanting running water. Well, that's the creek under the house you lived in
Yes,
Virginia. Like,
yes. Not only that, but the foundation was mostly quartz.
oh, you're just sitting on a big antenna.
I like to call it a spirit vessel. And I think that's why some houses can be haunted and others aren't when they have the same sort of history.
Hmm.
You need to have that right spirit vessel for it to retain it somehow.
I have a friend, David Ullman in California. His house has three big iron bars that go into bedrock, and he's on the north side of a valley,
Mm.
across from where I can't remember the movie star now. Back in the 30s, he was building a big ranch, but
Oh.
it's also about 200 feet from where the Tate Bianca murders were.
Mhm.
So he's got one of the people from the murder, and he's got an American Indian. He's got a horse.
Mhm.
He's got the movie star from across the street, and they love it there. Everything is so positive. There is
Yeah.
nothing negative in the place. They're absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Dr. Barry Taff, who is
Uh-huh.
very
Oh
connected,
yeah.
he won't go there anymore. He says he just makes him sick. He said he
Uh-huh.
described David's house as Disneyland for the dead. This is where you come to have fun.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that's where energies are important because the energy of the people that live there, they're part of the milieu or the broth of the soup that can affect the haunting, whether it's positive or negative. So
Mm.
when I talk to people about, if you collect antiques or family heirlooms, sometimes adding something new to the collection, suddenly you have a lot of activity. And people think, oh, it must have been a bad item. I should get rid of it. And that's not necessarily true. If you have two positive energies, you could have the happy, childish, excited energy of Christmas morning. That's positive. But you could also have the meditative, peaceful, one with the universe, and that's a positive energy. But you put those side by side, and it causes a big, crazy burst of energy. So all you have to do is really move the objects around to make it happier. And in this case of this man living in this house, obviously his energy is attuned with that kind of energy, but to someone else that might not be pleasant.
Yeah, and he's a psychic too.
Hmm. Very good.
Which is good. Yeah, he says, oh, Rudolph Valentino. That's who
Oh, okay.
that
Yeah.
was living across the street, or that was his property across the street. So he's there, all hanging out at the bar, which is kind
Uh-huh.
of funny. It is location, location, location. It
It
is.
is. There's also another factor of feng shui, basically, as far as the way that the house is laid out and where the items are. And when people come to me with a lot of activity in their home, the first thing I'll want them to do is to try to clear out some paths, get rid of some clutter, bring in some light, play some soft music, try to change the course of which energy goes through the house. And really all you have to do is go through your front door, go through your house, just float around, like when you were a kid, you'd put your arms out and you'd pretend like you're flying. Just go through your house like that and see, is there anything stopping your pathway? That's where the stuff pools and gets stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, the house that I moved into not too long ago, the Feng has no shui. It's actually not too bad. It's broken up a bit, but we're on my side anyway. I'm making it all open concept and adding bedrooms upstairs. So when you walk into the house, it's completely flow from front to back.
Very good.
And yeah, it's going to be a lot nicer than what it is now. You moved in the summer, did you, up to
Uh-huh.
where you are now?
Yeah. It wasn't that far away, but I had a situation where I could live close to the mountain, and I thought, well, how could I pass that up?
With the pool.
What's interesting is the house is in a retirement community, and the man who lived here previously had cancer and passed away here, and he's still here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay for his side of the food or anything. That's good.
No, I can't get him to pay for cable, unfortunately,
No.
but yeah.
Pay for it. He should just grab a hold of
No.
one piece of cable and the other piece, and he can be your connection.
Well, when I first walked through the house, my friend was purchasing the house, and he said he lives in another state, and he said, "Well, could you go through the house?" And I went through it, and I knew this guy was here, but it was a good kind of thing. I felt like I came home, like he was happy it wasn't staying empty. And then when my friend finally got to move here into the house, it seems like the house was so much more accepting, as if this man that passed away here really wanted this man to have the house. And it's very active at night, but it's a pleasant thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So a bit of change in your life over the summer. That's good. That's good. And you have a pool in this one, right?
No pool. We are
No
putting in a
pool?
jacuzzi though, so I'll have
Okay,
some water. Yeah, yeah.
excellent.
I can't go long in Arizona without water. I'm a mermaid, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, tell me what you're doing. What's coming up? What are these new adventures you have,
Well,
if you can?
recently, yeah, on Ghost Hunting Theories at the top, you can see a button for Haunted Shirley. And Haunted Shirley came my way several months ago of another investigator with Flint Hills Paranormal in Kansas, sent me a Shirley Temple doll. And she said, "Do you notice anything strange?" Well, yeah, the eyes were red. And I couldn't understand how those eyes turned red. The rest of the doll wasn't faded at all. It was all the right colors for the make of that particular doll. But she said the doll had a lot of issues around it. And I said, well, let me see what happens. So I kept the doll in my room, and almost daily, objects around her would fall, get thrown. At one point, she even threw herself off of a table at me. I was about a foot and a half away from her, and her porcelain head hit my head, and that shocked me. But it was kind of uncomfortable. But she seems to have some very psychokinetic issues with her. Well, then later on, my friend said, "Oh, I found another one." I'm like, "What do you found another Shirley?" And she said, "Yeah, another person wants to get rid of their Shirley because they're having object movement and their dogs are getting sick." So she
Oh,
sent me the other one. It had bright, bright green eyes. Well, the natural color of this model of doll is supposed to be green eyes, but not opaque, bright green eyes. And then she sent me yet a third doll with brown eyes. And each doll I did a read on, and each one had a very different energy about them. And I'm continuing to observe them to see if them being together is an issue, or if they're separate, if they do things. So it's an ongoing study.
so you're just inviting the little creepy things into your home. Keep them
I
away from the
yeah,
cutlery.
I know. Me and dolls, I don't particularly like dolls. I'm not scared of them, but I even as a kid, if somebody gave me a baby doll, I would bury it in the pet cemetery on our property. So, yeah,
Oh, that's just wrong.
I know.
That's like
I,
some
I
kid out there going, "Don't dig in there. It's a pet
I was
cemetery."
I
But
was
there's
a
a human head.
tomboy. I wanted to be Gidget. I wanted to surf and be a gymnast or something. But I was not into dolls at all. That was not my thing. So, yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Sure. That's yeah, that's interesting. And it's interesting that they're all Shirley Temples.
It is. It is intriguing to me, and also what they seem to be capable of is that the first Shirley with the red eyes. There's a lot of stories on ghost hunting theories of the haunted Shirley, and you'll see the kinds of things that I've endured over the last several months with her. And since the other two dolls came, I've put all of them together in a box, and my hope was that somehow that was going to make all of their energies meld together because as a psychometrist, if like my mom gave me a ring that she inherited, and my mom wasn't particularly like a happy, pleasant person, and I didn't want to wear the ring because it was sort of a negative energy. So I put it in a box with a bunch of jewelry I had that had very good memories and was very happy. And about 6 months later, I could pull the ring out and put it on, and it was just my energy. So I was hoping maybe if I put all the dolls together, whoever has the dominant energy is going to turn the other dolls.
Interesting. Now, when you come in contact, you touch the first one, the doll with the red eyes, and it comes back as a bit of a negative. Is that a human energy or elemental energy?
This one is very unusual for me. It's the second time in my life that I was given an object that was completely sterile of memories or emotions or positive or negative, male, female. It had nothing. It was blank, really, really blank. And as I was watching it, moving objects around, throwing things around, I started to wonder. So I thought, well, the eyes are kind of weird. Let me take some pictures. So I got close up on one of the eyes and I took a picture. And when I looked at it, I went, oh my gosh, there's a face in that eye. And when I looked at it closer, I realized it was a man's face with a big white, thick mustache. Well, it's a little bit ironic because several months earlier, one of my dearest friends had passed away quite suddenly, and his he was a ghost investigator, but his specialty was cleansing and exercising and just protecting things. And he would always say, Sharon, you have to quit taking these objects in because some of them can be bad, and I want to be sure that they're clear of bad spirits. Well, I would always kind of laugh it off like nothing ever bothers me. I'm not worried. But here he is. He appears to be peering out of this eye, in a doll that has absolutely been blocked of passing energy back and forth with me. So I,
Oh,
I had to wonder. Then about a month later, I was on a road trip, and all of a sudden I went onto Facebook to see if I had messages. Well, I have private messages like dozens and dozens all the time. I go on there. There's not a single message, but it says message from, and it had his name. Well, he's been dead for like 6 months. And I'm thinking, what the heck? He couldn't be sending me a message. And it shows it was a message from like a couple years ago. But I was stunned because it just seemed like he's trying really hard to get a hold of me. And I wasn't sure if he was just, like, look, I don't want you and the energy of this doll to get together. So I have no idea if he can somehow blockade this thing.
I think he is. I think that's
Knowing him, he would.
yeah. He's
Yeah,
at least, and he's trying to let you know that until you get rid of it, he's going to be blocking it.
precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way to go, keeping them trapped in a doll. And how about the other two, the green-eyed one and the brown-eyed ones?
Yeah, the green-eyed one has some very spastic energy, but she's sort of a dominant doll. Like if you put her in a group, she would be the alpha. And I don't know what her intentions are so much as she just seems to want to be like the Italian mama or the Jewish mama, kind of like controlling the family.
Hmm.
So I'm just kind of watching her. And the brown-eyed one is kind of unusual. She's very silent. If you get near her, she does not like it at all. She doesn't like anybody. She doesn't like animals, people, other dolls. She just wants to be alone. And her energy is very ancient. It's like wind blowing through a canyon. It's forever and always, and it's not the earthly plane.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Are these the first three dolls you've had that had issues, or have you had other ones?
Well, I used to have a sidekick doll called Dale the doll that was a ventriloquist doll, but that was just for fun.
Oh,
I have a
Lord.
lot of it. I have a lot of his videos on YouTube. Yeah, he had a fan club, so
Oh, okay. No,
but
I'm just thinking
he had no
these.
issues.
Okay, no other dolls with issues.
Mm.
No, you're the only one who has issues with dolls. The what?
I'm probably being haunted by the ones I buried, but yeah.
Oh yeah, they're probably thinking, what did I do? They took me off the shelf. I was going home for a child's birthday. It was
And now I'm
beautiful.
buried next to
Um,
Fido. Yeah.
yeah, my little sister used to get a doll and then just take the head off of it and play with the head, throw the body away.
Oh,
Yeah, I know.
I actually have a collection of doll heads, but I use them for Halloween, so yeah.
Sure you do. You're a witch.
That's
Um,
right.
you're a ginger. You must be a vampire.
Uh,
You left-handed?
no.
Okay, just checking.
I'm
The
I'm a classic logic-minded Virgo, which is hilarious considering my life, but yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, that's a conflict in itself daily.
Uh-huh. Yes, precisely.
When you see a fairy flit across the foot of your bed and you're thinking, okay, how did that work?
I can explain that.
Yeah.
No, I've had a lifelong what you'd call alien gray contactee events, and one thing I learned when they happen, most people would be scared to see one. I'm actually very excited. And I observe their personalities, their energy, how they come and go, and I'm trying to logically explain them. I do not think they're from other planets. I do not think they were in some spaceship. I think that they biologically and by themselves can make themselves sort of, I don't know, I guess without a better way of explaining it, oscillate their frequency or something to pass on to a parallel world.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I talked to Travis Walton,
Yep.
your fellow Arizonian. When he had his UFO experience, he had conflict with two or three grays and ended up punching one. He said like hitting a marshmallow. But after they left, he wandered around the spaceship and bumped into some tall blondes. So they were the primary,
The Nordics,
the
yeah.
Nordics. Yeah. So he says the little gray ones were just little gophers that ran around doing stuff. But
Yeah, they do seem very mechanical in what they're sent to do. It's almost like you cloned a bunch of the same guy, but each one had a little bit different upbringing, so they're really similar in the way they do things, but different in their personalities a little. So, yeah, what's interesting is what I get from them is that they basically would like to visit if I'm sleeping because then I'm not going to move around because I'm not able to be paralyzed.
Mhm.
And so one of the times there were four of them in my room, and I swung my legs around to get up and go use the restroom, and I see one of them looking right at me, and I realize he's not the only one. So I look around the bed. There's four of them surrounding the bed. But my first instinct wasn't, oh my God, there's aliens here. It was, I better not stand up because I'm a tall woman and I'll intimidate him. I was worried about his feelings, which is
Yeah.
kind of a strange reaction. But at one point, I did crawl across the bed to try to touch one of them because,
From now.
no, I'm actually 56 now, believe it or
Oh,
not. Yep.
I have never had that kind of encounter with UFOs. Like I say, it was the first time I actually saw them, and I went, "Yeah, those are UFOs." Was up in Sedona last June.
Yeah.
But I don't know what I'd do if I had. I've talked to people, a lot of people who've had those experiences. Have you ever had the "Let's go up to the spaceship" one?
No, I feel like such a cheap date. They never take me anywhere. I don't know, but it's a different thing. I mean, abductees seem to be part of the mission of understanding the biology or the genetics, but in my case, it's contactee, and basically they're trying to give me information. And they had some sort of engineering thing that went on when I was very young, or maybe when I was born, but I was given certain things that lead me towards some sort of mission I'm supposed to do. So they sort of upload a bunch of information into me that it takes about 24 hours for the zip file to open, basically. And then I have a whole new understanding of the universe and how things work and why I'm here and what I'm supposed to do. But I get a little annoyed because they don't give me details about how to do it.
Yeah,
So,
it's
yeah.
interesting little
Yeah.
kick. Well, you've got that's one way to do it. I've got other friends who are psychics. They end up dying.
Mm.
And then when they come back, or they have the death experience, as I
Mhm.
call it, the near death. I don't think it's near death because they actually die. They
Yeah.
When they come back, it's like they've been cranked up.
That happens.
Yeah.
And that intrigues me. That sort of reset that suddenly gives you the skills. And I think what it is when I was born dead. Basically, it took about 4 minutes to try to get life signs out of me, and so I kind of retained an umbilical with the other side,
Mhm.
and then it got enhanced by the fact that I was a baby, in a house that had lots of spirits. So here, I can't close that line off at all. And I think for anybody that's ever been on the other side and come back, they still have that sort of umbilical to the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And it's that connection that's always going to be open. Yeah,
Mhm.
I didn't know you had the it it took a while for your soul to get in there.
Uh-huh.
Oh, she's out now? I just went up for coffee. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
I had to wonder about the manipulation thing because my mom had cancer and was told she will never have another child, and then I came along. When I came along, I had a genius level IQ, psychic skills, and some other weird skills. And then when I was 17, I had the same cancer my mom had. They gave me a 20% chance I would ever have a child. And I had my son, and his IQ is even higher genius level, and his psychic skills are even stronger.
wow.
So was there something at play here? We shouldn't have happened, but we did.
Now your son is William?
No, his name is Alex.
Alex. Okay. What does Alex do anything with his abilities?
No, no, he's had them very spontaneously. He doesn't like to acknowledge it. He's very much the logic minded of this world. I don't want to talk about that stuff kind of guy.
Uh-huh.
But he's shown his skills before. And one time he even mentioned encounters with aliens, but he said, oh, they must have been dreams. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yes, Alex. Sure
but
they were.
but see, I have an advantage having grown up the way that I had, that I was open to that. And I met a lot of psychic mediums as a child when they would do seances at our house. And they kind of helped me to understand that I might be a little bit different. And I tried to do that with him when he was growing up, but because his father was very much against that kind of talk and that kind of stuff, I didn't get the chance to give him quite the it's okay to have this ability and it's very natural.
Wow.
Yeah.
So here's a real easy question for you.
Mhm.
What do you think happens to us when we're dead?
Well, it's kind of an interesting explanation how I see it. What I see it as an added dimension. So if we look at ourselves right now, we're three-dimensional. If I
Hmm.
take a photo of you, I have a two-dimensional image of you, and all it shows me basically is a fraction of a second in the front of you and whatever was within that lens. And it doesn't show me any of your depth or your biology, your intelligence, or any of the other things that make up that extra dimension that made you 3D. So that is a facsimile of you, only a 2D facsimile. Now, it doesn't have the brains that you have, so you just jump one dimension and suddenly you have a human being instead of an image. Now, imagine if you go on to the next dimension, you would have an intelligence that is something that we can't even fathom, like that photograph wouldn't be able to fathom depth or intelligence or movement or biology. So we can't even begin to fathom what that next dimension is like, but you are a three-dimensional facsimile of the spirit that you right now are in this other realm. So you're having this human experience like the photograph is having a two-dimensional experience of you. So right now you're really representing the home team. That's your soul, and your soul is not in your body. Your soul is not able to be located specifically because it's not three-dimensional like we are. You are there, I am here. Soul is omnipresent.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get that? Well, I'm also going to bug you. Do you actually get that through connections and discussions with those who are dead? Or have you seen something like that? Or
Absolutely. I've had moments where and also when I was 16, my father had had a heart attack and he died, and he had several minutes he was gone. They couldn't get any signs of life out of him. When they brought him back to life, they were wheeling him out, and he gestured to me. He had this smile on his face. He looked like a happy boy. He had been sick for so long, and he had his color back, and he just looked so happy and peaceful. And he said, I was in a fjord, and my mama and my papa were there, and my tante Valberg was there. Well, he was from Norway, so he was back at the fjord with all of the dead family. And he said, there's colors that don't exist here. There's flowers that don't exist here. And they started to wheel him out again, and he started to gesture for them to stop. And then he waved his hand for me to, like to whisper to me. And I leaned over and he said, that was the real world. This one's fake.
oh
And
wow,
it kind of gave me the understanding that I needed to get a sense of how the universe works. And that combined with some of the visions and information I was given from the alien experience makes it very evident to me that at any time right now in your three-dimensional form, your mortal form, you can talk to your soul. It's not in your body, but you can say, hey, I know I'm representing you here. I'm trying to do a good job. I hope I'm making you proud. It's like talking to your own God in a way, because you are here, but your soul is not locked into your form.
interesting. I've never heard that before. That is very, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that in one of your fancy books?
No.
No.
I talk about it on radio shows sometimes, and I think I've probably talked about it on the blog. I like to use the blog to archive all my information more than books, because somebody could go pick up a book on ghosts. Like growing up with ghosts is great if you want to read about what it's like for a whole family to grow up in a haunted house, but it's not going to talk to you about ancient giants, and it's not going to tell you about other stuff. So the blog is where I put all the really good content.
Yeah, it's a ghost hunting theories, #1 ghost hunting blog on the web, #8 paranormal blog on this planet. Yeah, it's Bigfoot, books, ghosts, giant of the day archives, giants, haunted Shirley. Yeah, this got a ton of stuff. I'd love to. This would be a 7-hour show, and your voice would go, because evolution of Bigfoot, amazing dogman encounters and cryptids, and it goes on and on and on. This is a cool place. If I had an option to just look at it all the time, I would. But if you guys at work can get ghost hunting blogs on your work computer and just put it a little icon, and when the boss isn't looking, just pull this thing up. It is fascinating.
I've started doing some vlogs too on YouTube, so you can probably look up Sharon Day on there and find my vlogs. And I like to now and then just sit down, and I try to keep it under 5 minutes. Just try to give as much on a subject as I can.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going through the blog right now, and this looking at a fellow holding a very large what he believes is a human skull. Yeah, just crazy stuff. A lot of giant stuff in Virginia. Ancient stone circles found on a man's property in Virginia. This isn't the National Enquirer, but it has a lot of really good stuff on there anyway. It's but it's not, you're not pulling out of, well, bizarre headlines, but you're actually talking to
No, it's
people who
not.
do
It's
this
not
for a
just,
living.
yeah, it's not just titillation because one of the things that I try really hard to do is get people excited to go adventuring, go exploring, go seeking knowledge. And so I add a lot of links. I give you every step I can so you can take it and just run with it.
Yeah. This is fascinating. I can, again, it's Ghost Hunting Theories with Sharon Day. Sharon, I would love if you can come back too, and we'll talk about some more, because you did give me a little inside information on an upcoming adventure you're having, and I'd love to pick your brain about that once you get
Oh, yeah,
feet on the ground and going. So
yeah.
that'll be a lot of fun.
Expeditions and Ancient Giants. Yeah.
Yeah, that is fascinating. And can't wait for another book, especially about ancient giants. That would be a good one. If you could take some pictures of them. Uh, oh, I guess that's Julie's job, your friend, or
Well, Julie does a lot of stuff having to do with Arizona, which is
yeah.
fantastic. She's become quite the expert on the state. So,
Oh,
yeah.
good. So maybe if you're not going to talk to me next time I'm in Arizona, I'll take Julie out and I'll interview her.
Yeah, you need to go out with both of us. We'll get you into lots of mischief. But yeah, we know all the places.
Oh, excellent. That's what I
Yeah.
want to do. And again, Ghost Hunting Theories, Miss Sharon Day. And if you like what's going on this podcast, and if it's worth about $3 a month to you, please go to theoraclesofjamestyson.com and click on our Patreon account. We are going to be giving away once a month a psychic reading. We're going to draw names for a past life regression. And if we hit the 200 or 2,222 mark, people signing up, I'll be giving away trips. So if you want to go to Tombstone, Arizona and hang out with some ghost people there and do a ghost investigation yourself, I will be giving away a trip for two, airfare, hotel, and car rental, 2 places all over North America. Or if you live in the UK and you're listening, I'll send you up to Glasgow, or vice versa. Or if you're in Australia, I'll bounce you around to a few of the conferences there. And if you like UFOs, I'll beam you down to a few of their conferences too. At the max of 4,500 people we have signed up, grab your passport, because I'll be sending you overseas. So if you are in Australia, you're probably going to end up on the battlefields of Gettysburg, or out in Tombstone, Arizona, or up in Sedona, Arizona, looking at UFOs. If you're in the UK, you might bounce over here. If you're here in North America, I'll bounce you over to Glasgow, and you can go out with the team there and search some castles. Again, airfare, hotel, and I'm not going to get you a car rental. Dang it, because they're driving on the other side of the road there. So it's up to you. I might throw some dollars or some euros in there to help you with a car rental, but dang it, I don't trust you people driving on the other side of the road. So that's what's going on. That's if you guys join our Patreon thing. And again, it's only open to 4,500 people. And that will get you, and I'll probably come along with you on those trips and interview you too. So it'll be kind of fun. And what else will I get? Oh yeah, you get access to the video interviews that I have too, that are kind of on the secret side of our website. Sharon, thank you very much for coming. I hear music in the background, which means I have to leave and you have to go eat.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And keep in touch, please.
I will. You know it.
Okay, Sharon. Sharon Day, Ghost Hunting Theories.
That's it. Let's roll. And hey! Let's be careful out there.
Far over the snow, what are those voices? They sing as they go. What are those voices? Look over the mountain. Because somebody hide, somebody better hide on through the hill, like a pack of angry wolves on the trail. Dead or alive, we are out to get you, dead or alive. And forget yourself. If you're the one, better run away. Son, you are done. Throw your gun away. Here come the Mounties to get the